The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched wider than 3 football fields, its ceiling lost in the artificial mists high above. James Miller stood at the speaker's podium, his blue Earth uniform stark against the ornate golden decorations that covered every surface. After 20 years of serving as Earth's ambassador, he had never felt more alone than he did right now. "Honorable Council members," he began, his voice steady despite his racing heart, "Earth brings grave news. Our deep space sensors have detected something moving between the galaxies, something that destroys everything in its path." The council chamber filled with whispers and quiet laughter. Miller saw several of the alien representatives tap their communication devices, barely hiding their smirks. A tall, blue-skinned council member leaned forward, his long fingers forming a steeple under his chin. "Ambassador Miller," the alien spoke, his universal translator giving his words a musical quality. "Earth has been part of our galactic community for barely 50 years. While we appreciate your enthusiasm, surely you understand that we have monitored space for thousands of years. Our sensor networks are far superior to your primitive technology." Miller took a deep breath. Behind him, his aide Rachel Thompson shifted uncomfortably. She had helped prepare the data, had seen the evidence with her own eyes. The threat was real. "Council member," Miller responded, "I understand your position, but Earth's history has taught us to prepare for the worst. Our AI defense systems have detected a pattern. Something is consuming entire star systems at the edge of known space, not just destroying them, consuming them for raw materials." Another council member, this one covered in iridescent scales, let out a sound that might have been a laugh. "And how did your young civilization discover this when our networks show nothing?" Miller activated his holographic display. Above the podium, a 3-dimensional map sparkled to life, showing the movement of something vast and dark between the stars. "Because we were looking for it. Earth's history is full of civilizations that fell because they ignored warnings about unknown threats. When we joined the galactic community, we dedicated significant resources to monitoring deep space." "Ah, yes," a third council member spoke up, this one floating in a gravity bubble. "Earth's famous paranoia. Tell us, Ambassador, do you still maintain your ridiculously large military fleet? The one you claim is for defense only." The chamber filled with more laughter. Miller felt his face grow hot, but kept his composure. Rachel stepped forward, holding a data crystal. "We've brought detailed sensor readings," she said. "The threat is real, and it's getting closer." The head of the council, an ancient being who rarely spoke, raised a hand for silence. "Ambassador Miller, we appreciate Earth's concern. However, the Galactic Council has maintained peace and security for over 10,000 years. If there was a threat as you describe, we would know about it. Perhaps your sensors are malfunctioning. We would be happy to provide you with more advanced technology." Miller looked around the chamber, at the faces and features of dozens of alien species. All of them looked back with the same expression: amused condescension. They saw humans as children, playing at being a spacefaring civilization. "At least send a survey fleet." Miller tried one last time. "Verify our data. The threat is real, and it's changing course. We think it's noticed the energy signatures from Council space." "Thank you, Ambassador," the head counselor said firmly. "We will take your warning under advisement. This session is concluded." As Miller and Rachel walked back to their ship, she touched his arm gently. "They're not going to do anything, are they?" Miller looked back at the massive council building, its crystalline spires reaching toward the stars. "No," he said quietly. "They're not. Send word to Earth Command. Tell them to proceed with Operation Firewall. We tried to warn them." The Earth ship lifted off, its quantum engines humming quietly. Behind them, the Council continued its sessions, dismissing the humans' warning as another example of their species' paranoid tendencies. None of them noticed the small dark spots that had begun appearing on their long-range sensor displays, spots that grew larger with each passing day. 3 months after Earth's warning to the Council, The first ship disappeared. It was a large trading vessel from the Outer Rim, carrying precious metals and rare minerals. The Council marked it as a routine loss, probably to pirates. A week later, 2 more ships vanished from the same sector. Robert Evans sat in Earth's monitoring station on Europa, watching the data flow across his screens. As head of the Deep Space Tracking Division, he had spent the last 5 years watching for exactly these patterns. His team had predicted this would happen. "Sir," called out his assistant Mark, "we've got another disappearance. Cargo ship, 40 crew members, same region as the others." Robert rubbed his tired eyes. "Send the data to Earth Command." And he paused, looking at the growing cluster of red dots on his display. "Send another warning to the Council." The Council's response came within hours. "Thank you for your concern. Our investigation shows normal trading route disruptions. No further action required." In the following weeks, the pattern accelerated. Ships weren't just disappearing. Now they were finding debris. But it wasn't normal debris from pirate attacks or accidents. The wreckage looked like it had been partially dissolved, with strange, microscopic marks covering every surface. At the Council headquarters, James Miller stood once again before the assembly, this time with physical evidence. He held up a piece of metal that had once been part of a Council ship's hull. "Look at these marks," he said, his voice firm. "Our analysis shows they're from nanomechanes. They're not just destroying ships, they're consuming them, using the materials to make more of themselves." A Council member waved a tentacled arm dismissively. "Ambassador Miller, we have dealt with rogue nanite outbreaks before. If such a thing were happening, our containment protocols would handle it." "These aren't normal nanites," Miller insisted. "They're evolving, adapting. Each attack makes them stronger. They're learning from every ship they consume." The Council chambers erupted in murmurs. A senior member stood up, his crystalline body reflecting the chamber's lights. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "we should send a small patrol to investigate." But Earth's sensors already showed it was too late for small patrols. The Void Swarm, as Earth's analysts had named it, had established itself in multiple sectors. It was growing exponentially. Back on Earth, General Diana Cooper stood in the command center of Operation Firewall, watching the tactical display. Red zones marked confirmed swarm activity. Yellow showed probable infection sites. The colors were spreading like a virus across the map. "Status report," she commanded. "All Earth ships have been upgraded with the new quantum-locked armor," her officer reported. "A defense systems are at full capacity. The emergency shelters are ready. We've quietly evacuated our citizens from the outer colonies." Diana nodded. They had spent years preparing for this, ever since their first deep space probes detected the swarm's distant signals. While the Council had laughed at Earth's paranoia, humanity had been building defenses, developing weapons, and preparing for the worst. "General," another officer called out, "we're detecting a large Council fleet assembling near the infection zone. At least 500 ships." Diana shook her head. "Not nearly enough, and they're using standard energy weapons." She turned to her communications officer. "Send them the data on why energy weapons won't work. Tell them they need to pull back and regroup." The Council's response was predictable. "We appreciate Earth's tactical suggestions, but our fleet is more than capable of handling this situation." In his office at the Council headquarters, James Miller received the report of the Council's planned attack. He sent one final message to Earth Command. "They're going to engage the swarm. May God help them all." As the Council fleet moved into position, Earth's ships quietly took up defensive positions around human space. They could only watch as the mighty Council Armada, pride of the galaxy's oldest civilizations, moved toward an enemy they didn't understand and couldn't hope to defeat with their current weapons and tactics. The signs had all been there. Earth had seen them, had tried to warn everyone. Now they could only prepare for what would come next, after the Council learned its lesson the hard way. The first real images of the Void Swarm came from a small research station at the edge of Council space. The footage lasted exactly 6 minutes and 12 seconds before the transmission cut off forever. In Earth's Central Command, General Diana Cooper watched the recording for the 4th time. The swarm looked like a dark cloud at first, shimmering with metallic specks. As it got closer, the true horror became clear. Billions of tiny machines working together, breaking down everything they touched into raw materials. "Send this to the Council immediately," she ordered. "Maybe seeing it will finally wake them up." But it was too late. The Void Swarm had already reached its first major target, the Council colony of New Paradise. The colony had a population of 12 million. When the first distress calls came in, Earth's forces were already moving to evacuate their own settlements and nearby systems. In the council chambers, panic had finally replaced arrogance. The emergency session was chaos, with representatives shouting over each other. James Miller stood silently at his usual spot, watching the breakdown of the galaxy's oldest government. "How did we not see this coming?" demanded one council member, his scales now dull with fear. "Our sensors," started another, before being cut off. "Your sensors saw nothing because you weren't looking." Miller's voice cut through the chaos. "Earth tried to warn you. We saw this coming years ago. These aren't just machines. They're intelligent, adaptive, and they learn from every civilization they consume." The main display showed New Paradise's last transmissions. The swarm moved like a living thing, surrounding structures and breaking them down in minutes. Council defense ships fired their energy weapons, only to watch in horror as the swarm adapted, using the energy to power its replication. "The colony is lost," announced the head counselor, his ancient voice trembling. "We must protect our core worlds." Robert Evans, still at his monitoring station on Europa, watched the data streams with growing dread. "They're spreading faster than we predicted," he told his team. "The swarm is using the Council's own technology against them. Every ship they consume makes them stronger." Earth's defense fleet, hidden in plain sight for years, moved into their predetermined positions. Their ships looked different from standard Council vessels, blocky, heavily armored, with strange devices mounted where energy weapons should be. "All ships, report status," called Admiral Tom Walker from the fleet flagship. "Shield systems ready. Quantum lock armor engage. EMP cannons charge. Eye targeting systems online." They had trained for this, built their entire fleet around fighting this specific threat. While the Council had focused on energy weapons and sleek designs, Earth had prepared for a war against intelligent machines. Back in the Council chambers, the reports kept getting worse. 3 more colonies had gone dark. The swarm was moving faster now, using the consumed materials to grow exponentially. The Council's mighty defense fleet, which had kept peace in the galaxy for thousands of years, was being mobilized. But they were using the wrong weapons, the wrong tactics. James Miller made one final attempt to help. "Please," he said to the Council, "let us share our defense plans. We've developed weapons specifically to fight the swarm. Energy weapons won't work. They just make it stronger. You need—" "Silence," shouted a Council member. "This is your fault. Your primitive sensors must have attracted them to our space." Miller shook his head sadly and sent a coded message to Earth. "Coming home. They're beyond help now." As his ship broke orbit, Miller watched the Council's massive fleet gathering. 10,000 ships, the pride of a dozen ancient civilizations, preparing to fight an enemy they didn't understand with weapons that would only make it stronger. In Earth's command center, General Cooper received the final pieces of intelligence from their deep space sensors. The swarm was larger than they'd feared, but it was behaving exactly as their simulations had predicted. "Send word to all Earth colonies," she ordered. "Operation Firewall is now active. May God have mercy on the Council worlds." Because the swarm won't. The galaxy was about to learn a harsh lesson about the value of preparation and the danger of dismissing warnings from those you consider beneath you. Humanity had tried to prevent this. Now they could only hope their preparations would be enough to survive what was coming. The Council fleet was a sight that had inspired awe across the galaxy for thousands of years. 10,000 ships, arranged in perfect formation, their energy weapons charged and shields at maximum power. From his command ship at the edge of the battle zone, Admiral Tom Walker of Earth watched them through encrypted channels. He knew he was about to witness a massacre. "This is foolish," he muttered, watching the tactical display. "They're bunched too close together, making themselves an easy target." The Council's fleet admiral, a decorated veteran of 100 space battles, stood proudly on his command deck. "Today we show these machines the power of the United Council forces." His words broadcasted across all channels. "For 10,000 years, we have kept peace in this galaxy. No enemy has ever breached our defenses." Walker's second-in-command, Lisa Reed, shook her head. "They still think they're fighting a conventional enemy. Should we try warning them one last time?" "Send the message," Walker ordered, "but they won't listen. They never do." The warning was brief. "Council Fleet Command, your weapons will be ineffective. The swarm adapts to energy-based attacks. Request immediate withdrawal and tactical consultation." The Council's response came swiftly. "Earth forces, maintain your position and observe. The Council fleet will handle this threat." Then they saw it. The void swarm appeared at the edge of the battle zone, a massive dark cloud that seemed to eat the light of distant stars. The Council fleet's sensors showed it was even larger than their worst estimates. The swarm had been busy consuming everything in its path. "All ships, open fire," ordered the Council admiral. 10,000 energy weapons fired simultaneously, lighting up space like a new sun being born. The combined firepower could have destroyed a small moon. The Council crews cheered as the massive energy blast struck the swarm. Their celebration lasted exactly 3 seconds. The swarm absorbed the energy attack, using it to power its rapid replication. Where there had been billions of nanomechanes, there were now trillions. The dark cloud grew visibly larger. "Impossible," the Council admiral shouted. "All ships, increase power. Fire everything." Walker watched in horror as the Council fleet made exactly the wrong choice. "All Earth ships, maintain position," he ordered. "Record everything. The Council needs to learn this lesson, even if it's their last." The second wave of energy weapons had even less effect. The swarm had already adapted, using the Council's own weapon signatures to improve its defenses. Then it attacked. The first Council ship died in seconds. The swarm simply flowed around its shields, the nanomechanes finding microscopic gaps in the energy barrier. Once inside, they began breaking down the ship piece by piece, consuming metals, plastics, and organic matter alike. "My God," whispered Lisa, watching the feeds. "It's even faster than our simulations predicted." The Council fleet's perfect formation broke. Ships tried to flee in all directions, but the swarm had surrounded them. Energy weapons fired randomly now, each shot only making the enemy stronger. The Council admiral's last transmission was cut short as his command ship disappeared into the dark cloud. Walker's tactical display showed the massacre in cold, hard numbers. Council ships were being consumed at a rate of 1 every 2 seconds. Their weapons had no effect. Their shields were useless. Their proud fleet, the strongest military force in known space, was being eaten alive. In just under 7 minutes, it was over. Where the Council fleet had been, there was now only a larger swarm, growing as it consumed the last pieces of the 10,000 ships. Over 1 million Council personnel had died in those 7 minutes. "Send word to Earth Command," Walker ordered, his voice heavy. "The Council fleet is gone. All ships lost with all hands. The swarm is now 40% larger and showing signs of new technological integration." "Sir," Lisa reported, checking the tactical displays, "the swarm is turning toward the Council core worlds. Their defense grid is the same technology as their fleet." Walker nodded grimly. "Which means it's just as useless. Send another message to Earth Command. Tell them it's time for Phase 2 of Operation Firewall. The Council Worlds are about to learn why humanity spent the last 50 years preparing for this day. The Earth fleet watched in silence as the enlarged swarm moved toward the heart of Council space. They had warned them. They had tried to help. Now they could only hope their own preparations would be enough to stop what the Council's hubris had made even stronger. Panic spread through the Council Worlds like wildfire. The destruction of their entire fleet in just 7 minutes had shattered their confidence. In the Council's emergency bunker, deep beneath their Capitol building, the remaining leaders watched in horror as the Void Swarm approached their core systems. "How many civilian ships made it out?" asked the head counselor, his ancient face lined with worry. "Less than half," replied his aide. "The evacuation orders came too late. We never thought, never believed." The tactical displays showed the brutal truth. 3 Council worlds had already fallen. The swarm was moving faster now, using the technology it had absorbed from the destroyed fleet. Their mighty defense stations, armed with the same energy weapons that had failed so spectacularly, were being consumed in minutes. In Earth's command center, General Diana Cooper watched the feeds with grim determination. "Status report on Operation Firewall," she ordered. "All Earth colonies successfully evacuated from the danger zone," her officer reported. "Our fleet is in position. The quantum-locked armor modifications are complete on all ships. EMP weapons are charged and ready." A priority message flashed on her screen. It was from the Council, not a demand this time, but a plea for help. The same Council that had laughed at Earth's warnings just months ago was now begging for their assistance. "Put me through to the Council bunker," Diana ordered. The screen lit up, showing the fearful faces of the once mighty Council leaders. "General Cooper," the head counselor's voice trembled. "We were wrong. Catastrophically wrong. Please, Earth must help us. You've prepared for this. You knew what was coming." Diana looked at the tactical display. The swarm had already consumed 4 more Council worlds. Billions dead or fleeing. "We tried to warn you," she said quietly. "We tried to share our defense plans. You called us paranoid. Primitive." "We were fools," admitted the counselor. "Please, our people are dying." In the space around the Council's capital world, the last of their defense stations fell. The swarm had grown enormous, a vast cloud of intelligent machines that learned and adapted from everything it consumed. It had already absorbed the Council's most advanced technology, making it far more dangerous than when Earth first detected it. Admiral Walker's voice came through on the command channel. "General, the swarm is adapting faster than predicted. If we're going to act, it has to be now." Diana stood straight, her decision made. "Council members, evacuate who you can to these coordinates. Earth will handle the swarm." "But your fleet is tiny compared to what we lost," protested one Council member. "How can you possibly?" "Because we spent 50 years preparing for exactly this moment." Diana cut him off. "While you mocked our paranoia, we were building weapons specifically designed to fight the swarm. Admiral Walker, you have permission to engage. Show them why Earth's fleet looks so different from theirs." The Earth fleet moved into attack position. Their ships were ugly by Council standards. Blocky, heavily armored, without the sleek energy weapons the Council preferred. But every ship had been built for this fight. "All ships, activate quantum-locked armor," Walker commanded. "Power up the EMP cannons. Load the viral payload into the swarm disruptors. Let's show them how Earth fights." The first shots were fired not with energy weapons, but with electromagnetic pulses designed to disrupt the swarm's coordination. Special missiles carried viral code that could infect and turn portions of the swarm against itself. The quantum-locked armor prevented the nanomachines from breaking down their ships. But the swarm had grown too powerful too fast. Even Earth's specialized weapons couldn't fully stop it. They managed to destroy large portions, but the remnants retreated, adapting, learning. "Phase 1 weapons partially effective," Walker reported. "The swarm is pulling back, but it's already analyzing our technology. We need to move to Phase 2 immediately. In the council bunker, the leaders watched in awe as Earth's small fleet did more damage in 10 minutes than their massive fleet had done in its entire battle. But they could also see it wasn't enough. The swarm was changing, evolving. Diana's face hardened as she gave the order. Launch Operation Firewall Phase 2. God help us all. Operation Firewall Phase 2 began with a signal from Earth. Across human space, hidden stations that had been dormant for years suddenly activated. The council representatives, watching from their emergency bunkers, finally understood why Earth had maintained such a large network of seemingly empty space stations. Admiral Walker, you have command of the Phase 2 assets. General Diana Cooper's voice was steady despite the stakes. Show them what 50 years of human paranoia looks like. The Earth fleet's apparent retreat had been a tactical move, drawing the swarm toward the hidden stations. Now those stations revealed their true purpose. They weren't empty at all. They were massive EMP weapon platforms, each powered by a miniature sun. All stations, power up primary weapons, Walker commanded. Activate the AI defense grid. The swarm, still adapting to Earth's first wave of attacks, suddenly found itself surrounded by a web of defensive positions. Each station began generating a massive electromagnetic field, creating a trap that humanity had spent decades preparing. Sir, Lisa Reed called out from her tactical station. The swarm is trying to adapt, but it can't process the multiple frequencies fast enough. The AI is predicting its response patterns and changing the EMP wavelengths faster than it can evolve. In the command center, Robert Evans' monitoring systems were finally showing good news. The quantum disruption field is working, he reported. The swarm's communication network is breaking down. They can't coordinate their adaptations. The council leaders watched in amazement as humanity's true defensive capabilities were revealed. The small, ugly fleet they had mocked was just the visible part of a much larger strategy. The real power lay in the hidden network of defense platforms, all working together under the control of Earth's advanced AI systems. Launch the hunter-killers, Walker ordered. From each station, swarms of small drones emerge. Unlike traditional weapons, these were designed to fight the swarm on its own terms. Each drone carried a payload of counter-nanites, programmed to break down the swarm's machines at the molecular level. Counter-nanites deployed, Lisa reported. The swarm is trying to consume them, but it's working. The counter-nanites are breaking them down faster than they can adapt. The battle that followed was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. Instead of energy weapons and shields, they watched a war fought with artificial intelligence, electromagnetic pulses, and microscopic machines. Earth's forces didn't try to overpower the swarm. They outsmarted it. This is impossible, one council member whispered. Their technology, it's far beyond what they showed us. James Miller, standing nearby, finally allowed himself a small smile. We showed you exactly what we had. You just didn't look closely enough. Every trade ship, every space station, every satellite, they were all part of the defense network. We built it in plain sight while you laughed at our paranoia. The swarm fought back furiously. It tried to adapt, to evolve, to find new ways to consume and grow. But Earth's AI systems predicted each adaptation, countering it before it could take effect. The hunter-killer drones swarmed through the larger enemy, breaking it down piece by piece. The swarm is splitting up, Lisa called out. They're trying to escape the disruption field. Not this time, Walker replied grimly. Activate the quantum entanglement net. The hidden stations fired again, but this time they created a web of quantum-locked space between them. The swarm found itself trapped in zones where its adaptive capabilities simply stopped working. In the command center, Diana watched the tactical display as sections of the swarm began to disappear. The counter-nanites were doing their work, breaking down the threat they had prepared so long to face. We're winning, Robert announced, his voice filled with disbelief. The AI confirms it. The swarm's mass is reducing by 3% every minute. They can't adapt fast enough to our multiple attack vectors. The council representatives stood in stunned silence as humanity's full defensive capabilities were revealed. The race they had dismissed as paranoid and primitive had built a defense system more advanced than anything they had imagined. But the victory had come at a terrible cost. The council worlds were devastated, their mighty civilization brought low by their own arrogance. And the battle wasn't over yet. Parts of the swarm were still fighting, still adapting, still dangerous. Walker looked at his tactical display and gave the final order. Begin Phase 3. Phase 3 of Operation Firewall began with silence. Every Earth ship and station suddenly went dark, their systems seemingly shutting down. The council representatives watched in horror, thinking humanity's last defense had failed. "What are they doing?" demanded a council member. "Their systems are offline." James Miller watched the darkness with calm understanding. "No," he said quietly. "They're not offline. They're synchronized." Suddenly, every human system reactivated simultaneously. The entire defense network, every ship, station, and satellite, began operating as a single massive organism. The AI systems that had been fighting independently now merged into one vast intelligence, coordinating the final assault. "Execute Liberty Protocol," Admiral Walker commanded from his flagship. The words triggered a sequence 50 years in the making. The quantum entanglement net expanded, creating a massive containment field. Inside this field, the laws of physics could be locally altered. The swarm found itself trapped in a space where its adaptive capabilities worked against it. "The AI has full control of the battlefield," Lisa Reed reported. "Counter-nanite production is at maximum. The swarm's adaptation rate is falling." In Earth's command center, General Diana Cooper watched as humanity's ultimate weapon was revealed. Not a superweapon or a death ray, but the perfect coordination of all their technology, guided by an AI system they had spent decades teaching how to fight this specific enemy. "The swarm is trying to break into smaller units," Robert Evans called from his monitoring station. "But the AI is predicting every move. They can't escape the containment field." The council leaders watched in awe as Earth's forces demonstrated mastery over technology they had never even imagined. The hunter-killer drones moved in perfect synchronization, herding the remaining swarm fragments into killing zones. The counter-nanites swarmed through the enemy's ranks, breaking down their structure at the molecular level. "Swarm mass reducing by 15% per minute now," Lisa reported. "The AI confirms. Total victory is achievable." The battle that followed was brief but spectacular. The swarm, for all its power to consume and adapt, couldn't match an enemy that had spent 50 years preparing specifically to destroy it. Earth's forces had built their entire civilization around this moment, and it showed. Finally, Admiral Walker received the message he had been waiting for. Swarm containment complete. No surviving units detected. Operation Firewall successful. In the aftermath, the galaxy had to rebuild. The council worlds were devastated, their mighty civilization humbled. But more than that, the balance of power had fundamentally shifted. 1 week after the battle, the remaining council members met in an emergency session. The Grand Chamber was much emptier now, many seats permanently vacant. James Miller stood before them again. But this time there was no laughter, no dismissive gestures. "The Earth Alliance offers its help in rebuilding," Miller announced. "We're willing to share our defensive technology and help establish a new early warning network, but we have conditions." The head counselor, one of the few survivors from the original leadership, nodded solemnly. "Name them." "First, the council will be reorganized. All member species get equal voice, regardless of their technological level or how long they've been spacefaring. Second, Earth will lead the new Defense Committee. We've proven we know how to prepare for threats." The council members looked at each other, then back at Miller. They had no choice, and they knew it. Humanity had saved what was left of their civilization. "We accept," the head counselor said simply. In Earth's command center, General Cooper looked at the final casualty reports. The victory had cost them dearly. Thousands of brave humans had died manning the defense network, but they had saved trillions of lives across the galaxy. Send word to all Earth colonies, she ordered. Operation Firewall is complete. Begin recovery operations. Admiral Walker stood on his flagship's bridge, watching the cleanup operations. You know, he said to Lisa, some might say we were paranoid all these years, building all this just because we detected a possible threat. Lisa smiled. Being paranoid isn't always wrong. Sometimes the monsters in the dark are real. As humanity began helping rebuild the galaxy, a new saying spread among the council species. Listen to the humans. They might be paranoid, but they're usually right. The age of council dominance was over. The age of human leadership had begun. And this time, when Earth warned about a threat, everyone would listen.